just under the wire. It's not quite 5:30. There, it's 5:30. Okay. We'll talk slowly to give people a chance to get their coats off. But since we have public hearings scheduled for 5:30 and it is 5:30, I will call to order the first public hearing regarding where the school calendar should be hours or days. Have we received any comments?
I've received nothing.
I'm shocked. Okay, so we've been doing days, I assume.
We switched to hours a few years ago.
Hours,
Yeah, we switched to hours a few years ago. Makes a lot of sense, gives you flexibility to do things. I think almost everybody switched that year. They had 10 snow days, and they realized that if you have a wonky winter, it's nice to at least have the flexibility of hours.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone have any questions, comments?
Just the public hearing. You can.
Okay, so we will close that public hearing and call to order the second public hearing regarding the proposed calendar for 23-24. Have we received any comments? Anyone wish to comment on the calendar? Okay, we will close that public hearing and call to order the February meeting of the Decorah Community School District Board of Directors. Note by way of roll call that all directors are present. And Ben, do you have the mission?
I do.
Statement? Thank you.
At the Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization, empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. We have two items of old business. The 700 series is up for a second reading. Anyone have any suggested revisions or any questions or concerns about the 700 series?
Well, about 700, 800s, a lot of stuff involving Kathy. And so she and I went through it a little bit, and then she pulled out all the policies that we had that weren't in the ISAB stuff. So we made sure to add those, so we're not losing off any policies that we've had in the past.
So are we working off of, because I kind of looked at this, I didn't have a chance to look at it a lot, but are we working off of what we had for our?
We're taking in the ISAB stuff, and then
Okay.
so then we go look and say, okay, because it's not the same number. Some 700s is in the 800s, and some, 800s and 700s. It's just like, okay, what do we have to have about capital management, capital asset management? We at least have that policy covered. And so by the end, we'll be mostly ISAB policies with, again, this 700s and 800s probably borrowed more from our old policy or added in items from our old policy than any of the other ones did. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we'll mostly have an ISAB consistent policy.
Okay, and the reason I ask is we had a service quite a few years ago where we were paying money to have somebody help us manage that. And then the most recent, I think with most recent thing we did is we really looked into them really in depth. And we sent them to Allers and Cooney, and Allers looked at it and looked at the questions that we had, and then they sent it back. So we made changes to ours. We didn't start back over. So, and we spent lots and lots and lots of money with Allers over the years. So I'm not saying this isn't the right way to do it, but as you used to do it in your superintendent way of doing it, I don't I just may want to make sure we don't lose all that information that we have and spend a lot of money for to get it reviewed. And it doesn't, we don't want to lose anything that had to do with us specifically. So,
Yeah,
how you do it, how you get to it, I guess. Or where you get there at the end of the day, as long as we have the right information that we've spent a lot of time and energy on. As long as we don't lose it, I think that's fine. But just keep in mind that there's, if you really probably need to look at the old stuff to see, be pretty specific that we're keeping the things that pertain to our district. So, I mean, we spent a lot of time on these over the years.
Yeah, the one thing with the money that we spent with Allers, I think that, well, Allers is consulting with IASB. So I don't think it's going to be a great deal of inconsistency between them. And IASB gives us a package for, was it like $500 a year or something?
it's, the ICB offers it as just their subscription.
Yeah.
And they're looking at, you know, I think I've shared this before. I'd say at least 95% of the districts in the state use ISAB. It's, you know, usually when I'm looking at the stuff we have with ISAB, we're trying not to lose anything that we had. Obviously, I kind of mentioned Kathy spent a lot of time going through and making sure that the business stuff was consistent, but with regards to lunch policies, we've also looked with the student stuff. We did a lot of time with middle school, high school staff, making sure that we were consistent with that. Because among other things, I know lots of times policies change, and we don't include those principles, and they've got something in the handbook that might be out of date. But I mean, there's a lot there without a doubt. So will everything get ported over? I think the important stuff will be.
That's what we need.
Brian, I remember what you're talking about. It seemed like the company that they were reporting was going to be less expensive than what ours was.
Much.
And that's why it went to that. So now we're back to ours. Yes.
No,
No, we're not back to ours.
just kind of,
We had this service with ISAB does this service for everybody, and it was already included in our membership. So it cost us nothing to get the stuff.
I'm sorry, I misheard.
Yeah, it's just,
As I was trying to.
that was right. We switched from Allers to IASB, and that's still what we're,
Yeah, I don't know when you guys started working with Allers, but it's my understanding you'd been working with Allers for a few years prior.
3 or 4 years ago, probably.
Okay.
at least, yeah.
The whole time since I've been here.
Working with Allers, yeah.
Long thing.
Since
And
at
there's
least
some things that
2000.
we, well, that was valuable that if we didn't have hours to look at it at that particular time, that we weren't being, we probably had some gaps where we need some good information. This program, obviously, they're doing what's right, and they're using their counsel to develop it too. But I guess what I'm saying is spend some good time on it and make sure that, you know, that whoever's involved, spend some good time on it and make sure that we have the things that might match our handbook as well.
Oh, sure, yeah, and we've been doing that, and we'll continue to do that, so. But, I mean, Kathy went through and I'm sure
I
that,
started with the 700. I don't know what happened
Yeah.
prior to that, so.
Yeah.
so,
But Tim has been engaging pertinent
yeah,
staff.
yeah,
at
so when there's the
every-
500s, we looked at it
every
with Brad
stage.
and Adam,
Mhm.
Mhm.
so. And the 900s, we'll probably look at it with Adam and Greg.
Mhm.
All right. Well, with regard to the 700s, does anyone have a motion to offer?
I so move to approve the 700 series suggested changes.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the 800 series.
everything that we just talked about,
Yeah.
but more with building.
Mhm.
Either dealing with facility usage and management.
Facility usage is gonna be in the 900, so 800s was more, building site stuff. Capital asset management. Kind of things.
I'll make a motion to approve the 800 series.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, next I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda,
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
or do we have the one item to remove yet, or is it all?
Oh, no, so I'm gonna recommend that, as with the agenda item, we remove item J, the local risk pool for the natural gas.
Actually, it's not on.
Well, it's been removed. Okay, never mind.
So.
No, I think it's just
yeah,
item
that's,
A got removed, so they're not numbered right, but it's
Oh.
removing item
Okay.
I.
okay, it
Remove
is,
item I.
Oh, it's I, sorry.
So I would amend my motion to disclude item I from the stated agenda.
So we're not going to address that tonight?
Yeah, no, Kathy and I had a chance to sit and talk about how there might be some benefits with the program we're currently in. We get a lot of relief, and so we get a good rate on our risk, on our natural gas, so
Was that like the latest email you sent us
probably.
today? Okay.
Probably, I think I had some facts about it, so we get a good rate on it, and there's no rush to do it, so
Okay.
rather than rush through, we can do it next month, or we can do it 2 months from now, or we can come back and say, we're okay with waiting another year.
yeah, we wanted to gather some more information to. So, we have a motion for the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Did anyone see anything to separate out? Okay, I did not either, so we could do it all at once.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I can second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is the time for communication from the public. The open forum is time set aside for the board to hear comments from the public. Comments are not limited to items or topics on the agenda, but are limited to matters within the board's authority and are not to extend more than 3 minutes in length. As per Iowa code, the board cannot discuss matters not posted on the agenda. Also, please remember comments are being made in a public forum, and any comments that are inflammatory may be subject to legal action. So I know we've got one name on the list, so feel free to stand up if you like or whatever.
Can I just sit right here?
Sure.
My name is Tristan Round. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in front of all of you tonight. I would like to take a minute to read a few lines from the educational philosophy of the Decorah Community School District. It states, "We value cooperative teamwork among students, teachers, support staff, parents, administrators, and the community. This begins with an attitude of openness and mutual respect, honest listening and expression, the flexibility to respond to change, and the ability to compromise." The philosophy ends by saying all citizens of the Decorah Community School District should have a commitment to excellence and a shared responsibility to support lifelong learning. On February 2nd, our educational philosophy was broken. An American history lesson plan was not submitted through the appropriate approval process, which allowed a survey from a Harvard University research study intended for adults to be administered to minors. The students were told by their teacher to lie about their age in order to be granted access for participation. One of the core values to which DCSD is guided by is integrity and humility. The definition of integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. How can we expect this core value out of our students if their teacher is not exemplifying this behavior? Parents were not asked by their teacher to give permission, breaking the openness and mutual respect of the DCSD citizens. The excellence our school strives for cannot be fulfilled if our philosophy is not upheld. The study's website also specifically states that survey has the potential for misuse and should not be conducted outside of a research institution. To my knowledge, Decorah High School does not qualify as such. We have addressed this incident at home and have instructed our teenager to deny requests for participation in any future surveys and to never follow along when an authority figure tells him to do something that compromises his personal morals and values. I ask everyone listening here today to go to implicit.harvard.edu to see for yourselves all of the ethical considerations that were violated in American history class that day. May each of the board members representing our district reflect on this incident and make the necessary personnel and policy changes to ensure our community that this breach of trust is never broken again. I also ask the board to draft and implement a district policy prohibiting these data collection research studies from being administered to our children without parental consent from this point forward, regardless of minimum age requirements. Thank you again for your time. I know you will do what is in the best interest of your students and our children as it aligns with our historically successful education philosophy. Thank you very much. Have
Thank
some
you.
papers to give to you.
As a speech judge, I must compliment you on finishing at 2 minutes and 57 seconds. That's amazing.
I am prepared. You will learn that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no presentation this evening. So we'll move on to new business. We've had our public hearing regarding hours versus days. It is time to decide on hours versus days. Anyone want to make a motion?
Before we move on to that, can I just, and then we have public listening and not too many people here, there are some people here that people do obviously realize that this is part of the public comment and we cannot, and so we can't reply to it or answer any questions or even discuss it because we can't do it because it's not part of the agenda. So just want to make sure that that's clear.
It's not,
And,
But-
and always, community members, if there's a concern or question to work through with teacher, principal, chain of command. And I know you're, Kristen, you're more than welcome to set up a meeting with us.
I plan to, whatever
Okay.
works for you. I'm pretty flexible with my time, so I already said we're busy, so.
All right, well,
Are you guys gonna be discussing what happened in this?
no, we can't because it's not on our agenda.
Okay, I
we-
wasn't sure.
we just- As you made that comment, we were just making sure people understood that we can't. Because it looks kind of weird, like she spoke and they didn't say anything.
No,
Well,
I know.
it's not on the
This is
agenda,
not my first.
so, okay.
Thank
But I
you.
didn't want you to leave without reiterating that we are more than willing to have a meeting with you and work on chain of command.
I appreciate that, Dr. Cronin.
Okay.
Thank you.
and Dr. Cronin, can you, for the public listening in tonight, can you review the chain of command of
Oh,
concerns?
sure. I mean, it's pretty basic. If you have a concern with the teacher, we would ask that you start with the teacher or, the person that it happened with and work up. From the teacher, you go to building principal, from building principal, superintendent. Superintendent usually to the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, back to new business. And I'm still seeking a motion to either suggest days or hours for the coming school
We
year.
want hours, right?
We do want hours.
Yeah.
Please.
I'll make a motion to approve hours calendar for the next school year.
I would second that.
Okay, further discussion?
Well, just again, for the public listening, this allows us to, we transitioned to this recently.
Yeah, Decorah, I think, was one of the last districts
They were.
to transition. The benefit to the hours, it's based on, it's 1,080 hours, which is 6 hours a day for 180 days. Most school days are longer than 6 hours and just kind of allows you to bank a little bit.
Yeah.
So then when you have a 2-hour delay or you want to make a decision for, or cancel school, obviously you have to keep your school calendar at 1,080 hours for students.
Mhm.
So you always start the year with more than 1,080, and then you kind of, as stuff happens, chip away. But as we said, if it's days and you cancel a day, then you always are required to make it up. But if it's hours, you're not always required to make up every hour you missed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We also had a public hearing regarding the proposed calendar. And now we get to consider the approval of such calendar. Want to hit the high points?
Yeah, I think that it's a lot like this year's calendar. You look at Christmas being a little bit later, so we gotta have that full week of school, which kind of helps us capture. We moved conferences around in November, which allowed us, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is now the comp day for conferences. We thought that might, giving people an extra day at that time of year might be beneficial for staff. I think those are the probably the big ones. It's a school year that ends on May 22nd, which is a Wednesday prior to Memorial Day. Probably the other big innovation that we did, we put a staff PD day on January 2nd. With the idea that we might be flexible with that and try to do it asynchronous, where it wouldn't have to be done on that day, or could be done on that day, but if we're working on some PD that could be delivered and staff kind of do it when they have the ability, and that would free up the day for staff. So we're hoping that is viewed as a positive thing for the staff, and gives the students kind of a little bit longer break, and then staff probably a longer break, because most likely they'll have that PD done before January 2nd.
This is obviously your recommendation, and I imagine, but I'd just like to confirm that you forwarded it past the district leadership team, the building principals, and the DEA.
Yes.
Okay, so then therefore I will make a motion to approve the calendar as presented and based on the recommendation of the superintendent.
Well, second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, getting back to a calendar issue regarding this academic year. The proposal of changing April 21st of this year from professional development to student contact day. Why is this?
So, we've had 5 snow days. 2 per master contract are forgivable, so that means 3 snow days. And we were gonna end on a Wednesday, so then that would put, the 3 days would be Thursday, Friday, and that would be Tuesday after Memorial Day. And so just kind of looking at that and crossing our fingers that we could get by. We thought if we could recapture 1 PD day, we could have the last student day be on Friday, May 26th, rather than Tuesday, May 30th. So with all the other days on the calendar, some are that we may not have school. Some of them are related to work that has to be done, like this week, we don't have school on Friday, and that's the conference comp day. So teachers have done conferences on the 9th and 13th, so that's their compensation day for that. The 20th is one of the district holidays that we don't have school. So some of the PD some of the days we couldn't really do much with, and really the only day that was left was April 21st. And so that was a day for staff to have professional development, and we thought if we traded that, put the professional development at the end of the year, work on some kind of asynchronous models for that day for staff, that then we could recapture that learning for students before Memorial Day. And with any luck, get them out on that Friday.
Yeah.
So, and kind of reviewed some calendar options with, district leadership team as well, and it was well received.
Now, would this be possibly revisited if we wind up with 4 more snow days between now and then?
I suppose anything's possible. I think once we say we're gonna have school that day and people change plans, we'll probably just have school that day. And, you know, I mean, we kind of went into it knowing, once we do this, it's like the die is cast. and,
Yeah,
You know,
the bad weather.
yeah, and so maybe we're jinxing ourselves. But I kind of sent a note out to staff that this was gonna be my recommendation after the last snow day. And just said, you know, it wouldn't be official, nothing could be official to the February board meeting. Thinking that maybe if we did have a couple of snow days, then we'd come to this meeting and say,
Mhm.
this was our idea, but now we wanna punt, but
Mhm.
I,
Any additional snow days left, we just tack on the end.
yeah, they would have to be tacked onto the end. We would say we did our best.
and I would say if we'd started school on August 18th, like we used to like to do, we wouldn't be talking
Yeah,
about this.
yeah.
Okay, so we have a recommendation. Anyone want to make a motion?
Based on the superintendent's recommendation, I move that we change Friday, 1st, 2023 from professional development day to student contact day as suggested.
I'll second that motion.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I assume Sean's gonna come up and speak to us about the bids.
Yep, I'm gonna pass these around. These are some of the samples that we got sent. So that's the iPad case, iPad and the case itself for the computers. Just to highlight the quotes, so we sent the RFP out, received 1 quote back. It was a very lengthy quote, the packet contents, there's a lot in there, but that was kind of the contents removed, all the fluff removed, all the little pictures and stuff that make it a little more wordy. So on page 5 of that insert was the quote. To highlight the quote, we requested 1,195 MacBook Airs. They priced them at $779 each. About $100 more than what we paid the last time for a MacBook, which meets kind of the market value. Everything's kind of gone up since 2018. So that was still a pretty good price in my opinion, knowing what some of the devices were paid for in the past here and in other districts. Apple Care for 3 years is $134.10. That's a pretty good price for 3 years of Apple Care warranty that I think is gonna cover us very well. iPads.
What's the number on Apple Care again?
$134.
$134.10.
One time or every?
Just one time.
Okay.
Yep,
For the
one time
3
price.
years.
Yeah.
Yep, and there's no service fees. That's the nice part about you can buy the cases with them. They offer it with no service fees. Otherwise, you gotta pay like $20 fee every time you send it in or call and for anything. They'll warranty the batteries. That's huge. You look at other manufacturers, they don't warranty batteries. They warranty the power cords, both the brick and the cord. Other manufacturers don't do that. That's kind of a nice thing. Apple didn't do that in 2018. They do that in
And 2 breaks a year?
2 breaks a year.
Not that we want to advertise that.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're not encouraging anything.
Yeah.
Can we rewind that?
It's 2 accidental breaks and
Accidental.
they get to determine the accidental, not us. That's the big kicker. So we could send one in and it's an accident, but in their eyes, it would be an accident.
Are they allowed backpacks at high school? In the classroom?
They usually just carry those around, not in the classroom.
They're not allowed?
Right,
Okay,
so they usually just use that like their carry around.
okay.
Yeah.
It seems like the previous bags, there was stuff, other things in them. They're not gonna stuff much in that. That's the same.
It's the same.
Oh, is it the same? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same exact
My
bag.
kids are getting old, sorry.
Yeah.
Especially very sturdy, because we could get you off of protection.
They're still gonna stuff folders and things in, aren't they? Okay.
So the iPads, they were $294 each. And the Apple Care for those is $44.10 each. The rugged combo case, the blue case, is normally $99. They price it at $89.95, so they give us a $10 discount. And then the Moisel Manager, which is the management that helps us push software and push updates and manage the devices. That's $9.35 each for 3 years. So it's just a total 3 years for $9.35 each. And then the drop sleeve was $24.95 each. That case, we actually looked at a little bit different variation of it, more of like a briefcase type where it was a long way. We talked to both the manufacturer and Apple. Apple completely discontinued it from their line, and the manufacturer has stopped manufacturing it because they had a lot of breakage in it. So we went back with this one. This was one that was hot. The kids seem to like that one. They don't stuff it. Working my past district, we had lots of problems with kids stuffing things in there and breaking their computers. And so it's worked out really well. It has that accessory pouch on the outside that keeps everything safe. And then they offered a lease for 4 years, so 0% like we've had in the past. The other thing that's new that they added in the packet, which I believe was on page 8, I believe, was the buyback guarantee. So their Apple themselves are kind of getting back into the buyback thing. So they gave us an option to do a guaranteed price. After 4 years, they're going to give us a certain allotment. So I can tell you what they are. The MacBook Airs, they're going to give us a minimum of $120 a piece as long as they turn on. They're going to give us $50 for the iPads each as long as they turn on. So that total for that buyback minimum quote was $177,900. That's lower than what we normally get. So one of the questions I asked about it was, okay, so can we, if the value is higher, do we get the higher value, or are we locked in at that price? And he said it's whatever the fair market is at that time. They just give us what it is now and lock it in just in case it goes down. So that's kind of nice. We are not locked in. So if we sign this today, we're not locked in at doing their buyback. We can still take it out for bid like we normally would and choose who gets the best price. They just give us the option, which was really nice. Those are some clarifications that I have on them. Is there any questions?
Yep. So I like the stylus for the iPad, and these are going to the elementary schools. Is that correct?
Yep.
And but I can, when I was in elementary school, I had these what were called idiot strings on my mittens that prevented them from separating themselves from my coat, and is there, I can see those styluses getting lost and so on like that. And how much do they cost to replace? And or is there a way that you could, do what my mom did with my mittens?
We actually use those styluses now with the current devices. Not every class uses them. It's kind of on the teacher. If the teacher wants to use them, they have them. But they put them in a bucket on top of the
That's not a
case.
problem.
So it's not really a problem. The thing we see is they do the tips break on them, but they'll replace the also replace the tips on them instead of replacing the whole stylus.
Okay.
These are Apple iPads. They use two different types of styluses. There's active touch and then there's inactive touch. These are inactive, so you don't have to plug them in like the iPad pencil. If you've ever seen those, you have to have them charged. They have a battery in them.
I mean, this is a pretty substantial expense that we have on a recurring basis. Kathy, I assume this is within the parameters of what we've been planning on.
This is actually a lot less because we leased $442,000 in payments, and it's what, $369?
So I can't remember this.
How did we get that lucky?
I think fewer devices.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
fewer devices. This time we didn't include the teachers with it as well, so that was a little bit less on those two.
And does that have the Apple Care in it, or is,
Built into it.
okay, Did you talk about billing us separately so we could do that out of management fund? or-
And, yeah,
Okay,
That
So we
was
could discuss if
after-
we'd rather take it out of management fund versus
Absolutely.
Apple say.
That's a good idea.
I had him quoted as a separate line item, so we could do that if we wanted to.
And can you say it one more time? How many times or what's the frequency of one-to-one devices being replaced? 5 years?
It's 4.
4 years?
This was a 5-year, there was a transition between me and Curtin, so we went with the 5.
So the,
4 is difficult to remember.
Okay, good. I'll make a motion that we approve the bid for student one-to-one devices.
well, second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor of the one bid that was submitted as per Apple policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we go on to a quote for a bus hoist. Now, it's something we buy every 4 years.
Yeah, that's what we buy every 4 years, as part of our new, transportation facility. We were looking at having a hoist, which will, among other things, enable us to do more repairs in-house, which we have the capacity to do, with, the technical expertise. We just need the actual infrastructure to do it. So this bid came in and it was over the threshold of $50,000 and it's time sensitive. Is it good through March 1st?
March 31st.
March 31st. So we put it on the agenda for board approval. We recommend doing this.
And given the recent history of supply chain issues, we certainly want to get it ordered, so we have it before school starts in the fall.
Assume they went out and looked at multiple twice. Did they do some bidding or?
This was the one that they were interested in, and I know they talked to you a lot. I talked to me and just said, this is what we
Yeah,
want.
this is, they brought the pamphlet in, but this is what they wanted, so. I'm assuming they looked at all the other versions here too. Not all of them are buses though.
Yeah. And I would note that this is actually buying from a local vendor, which is a very good thing.
How long do they last?
We've never had one.
Okay,
So this.
stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at Southern Charles City, which was, we went over to their bus barn many years ago and so I don't know a lot about them, but I saw those and I know what they do. They can move them around in the building and they move them out of the way from the bus, so the bus can be in different areas and then they bring them under each wheels of the bus and remotely and probably through I think they all will raise up together and do everything, probably raise the front end of a bus up without the back end, so. And there's a picture in here, I think, too. But I think it's gonna give them a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things, buses that we would have struggled to do before. And utilize the new bus barn and all the area that we have to be able to do a lot of things that we have in homeowners.
And I remember at an earlier meeting, hearing about one of our, relatively recent history hired staff
Mhm.
that have the skill to do a lot of in-house repairs. So I see this as an investment to save us. I mean, yes, it's an equipment investment, but we're saving fully
We should be
getting
able to-
maximum
yeah.
return on investment
Yeah.
on our staff
We should.
and saving from not having to contract it out. That's fine.
Yeah.
When I talked to Tim, he's asked if, I was gonna talk to Mike Woltmer on the progress of the bus barn, which I did. And, since he's be coming in before we take control of the bus barn, right, the new bus barn, that he said we can have delivered directly there and
Great.
they want to move him, so makes sense.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve this purchase.
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the quote from our local vendor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, we discussed the 700s and the 800s as second readings. Now we have a first reading of the 900s. Okay.
And so kind of to Brian's point, part of the 900s, this is community relations, but it's kind of interesting because it includes community use of facilities. So that's something that, oh, there's Mr. Riley. We talked about making sure we are tight with the way we do it here in Decorah. So, but it's a first reading, so we'll take some time to make sure we review this before next month's meeting.
And to everyone's delight, 900s are the last one, so we'll have our process complete after this one is taken care of.
So one of the things I notice in here is that one of the items is talks about distribution of materials. And that could be timely with our communication from the public today.
Yes, it could be.
One thing I would note, this is one where the policies are more in the nature of the discretionary ones that we can actually adopt if we like or not, or revise as we see fit, as opposed to most of the earlier ones which are dictated by state code. So this would be a good section to put some time in reviewing and make sure it says what we want it to say. But in the meantime, I'd entertain a motion regarding the first reading.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve the first reading of the board policy 900 series for school community relations.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The first reading is approved. Okay, next something that's been kind of a long time brewing, I guess, the nature of our special education director or facilitator, as we've
Yeah.
passed.
We currently have a full-time facilitator, which is just a teacher position that does a lot of the special ed stuff. I guess Iowa code, you have to have a special ed director, which then gets assigned to an administrator in the district, and so that is, like, among other things, part of the report that we do with the state called the fall bed staff. Our current special ed facilitator does a great deal of the work. There's design. My recommendation is that we just go from having a full-time facilitator and then part-time or part of an administrator's contract be the director, just to switch over to have a full-time special ed director. There's a lot of special ed stuff that needs to be oversaw in this district, so I think by doing this, we'll have better continuity for the program and consistency. One of the things that we'll start talking a little bit more about is we do have the crossroads across the street that is not our part of our school, but it's purchase service, and we're the fiscal agent of that. So one of the things that a special ed director very well may be needed to do is be more involved with that program to make sure we're complying with stuff, state laws. And then I know we're kind of watching all our finances. One of the things I would say, special ed deficit is allowed, is one of those SPRC requests, and so we can get authority for those costs. It does take a year to get that, but it is a cost that we can get authority for, which is nice, because you always want to get as much authority as possible. So, but
So you talked about a lot of benefits.
yes,
Are there any disadvantages that we need to consider
wow, geez.
to move it? I mean,
It's adding, it's an administrative position, so it'll be viewed as adding an administrator.
mhm,
That's what I would say.
mhm.
Well, the one thing is, it's not adding an administrator as in adding a 1.0 position. It's changing somebody who's already doing the work.
Oh, yeah, sure. I just said, yeah, it was viewed as that. And I guess one of the things is overseeing, having more input, a more active role with Crossroads across the street. That's a consortium that we're in where we're the fiscal agent and people buy spots in there. If students, special ed students are placed there from districts, neighboring districts, New Hampton, Postville, Amaki. So we turn around all our costs, we bill back to those districts. And so as one of the things with having a special ed director more involved over there, which probably is something that was a little overdue, will be then that cost, that percentage of that person's salary can then be billed back to those districts.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna meet with the principals in the consortium next month and kind of review some of the stuff with Crossroads.
One thing that I understand as well, from having spoken with elementary principals. Currently, any IEP meeting has to have an administrator present. And currently, the special education facilitator is not an administrator. So by having an administrator there would free up our existing staff to attend to other duties.
In general, administrator is needed at an IEP meeting. We don't always have them. Sometimes they sign off on it, but certainly if you have a special ed director, then they qualify as that. Principals may still come, but it wouldn't be as important.
Can this person still be a special ed director without being administrator?
No, you have to have the administrative license to be considered a special ed director.
That's what, or a facilitator, which is what we have right now.
We've had that before. Remember Laura Smith? She was here, and eventually went on to Keystone. She was a special ed facilitator. And, she was a good, with special ed kids, but just saw the grass being greener over Keystone. And so we lost that position because she was just the facilitator, not the director. Remember that? Yeah.
I do remember losing that person.
Yeah.
And that's one of the thought process when I talk about consistency and continuity in that position is if we turn it into a full-time director, I think we'll be able to keep somebody there a little bit longer.
We talked some time ago, we asked you to take a look at if we're administrator heavy versus numbers and with the amount we pay out administrators. Did you?
I had the numbers. I think I maybe shared those out in a report. Because it was like the top 10 above and beyond, below, and so it wasn't our neighboring districts. Let me just pull up like my weekly notes. If I didn't have a graph in there, maybe. Don't have that number right in front of me. I know when I looked right away, we were kind of right. Even if we added an administrator, back, we would be, and that's a little difficult just because it doesn't. I can't tell you what type of administrator all these districts have, but would be helpful. I could find that. This might take me a while.
Just something to, to take into consideration. I know we've added this year, second administrator, we would add it in the last 4 or 5 years anyway, so we just need to be careful of keep adding administrators, because with administration, probably some higher wages and quite a bit higher benefits, so. I think. And I know what next question would possibly be, do other districts in our size have this position as an administrative position?
Well, everybody's got to have some kind of special ed director. Is it a full-time position? I couldn't tell you what, so our size, I wouldn't do a comparison with, I'd have to go out to Waverly, Shell Rock and Marion, those districts.
Walk-ons is not full-time.
Walk-ons is not full-time.
Is she 2 days a week?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Well, she lives here.
But does she have another?
I think she's in another district 2 days a week.
Oh, okay.
Probably a shared position.
Yeah, I think so. And there was some incentive to do that, wasn't there?
Yeah,
I
so,
think you sent that.
yeah, so the incentive to share a special ed director with another district would be, if you share 20% or more, then that's funded at 2 students per district. So you get, the state adds 2 students to your enrollment, and you get a little over $15,000. So.
But most of the neighboring districts don't have cause for full-time.
Yeah, I could say that the other.
Yeah, their students all come here.
Yeah.
What's that?
The students all come here.
Yeah, well, something to do with it.
So I look back to see who we had for, special ed facilitators, and so Laura Smith was one of them, and prior to that, it was Marcy Erickson back in 2010. I wonder if this model of the facilitator and having a principal be the director with a license has been the model for quite some time. I can't go back beyond that, but it takes us back 13 years anyway.
Just to clarify, Dr. Cronin, you said that this position would be funded through the allocated special ed funding. Is that, did I
So,
understand that?
no,
correctly?
well, so it's a general fund expenditure, but what we're allowed to do is when we do those SPRC reports.
Right.
So when Kathy does the car, so September 15th, you probably know that date a little bit better than I do.
Certified annual report.
Certified annual report. So she does the car report. It's due September 15th, and that looks back on the previous year. So September 15th of 2022, Kathy finalized her report, and Kathy, it was probably done September 9th or something. I don't remember. Look back at the expenditures for last year, and in the certified annual report, they do a couple of things get pulled out of there, but one is it just looks at what you spent on special ed and what you got in state funding. So then that, for what do you suppose, Kathy, 90% of the school districts in Iowa, that's a deficit, 90, 95. I mean, it's a high percentage. The Des Moines Register did an article a couple years ago. And so the state then says, okay, you had a deficit in fiscal year 22. It's September of 22, and then it allows you within the next 2 months to file. Well, we make a, yeah, we make a request to the SBRC for that authority. And so then that goes, probably gets approved in October, then that shows up on our aid and levy sheet this year as one of the figures. So when I say it generates authority, it's a process by which it happens in fiscal year 22. As part of our car in September, the board asked for it like in October, and then it gets added to our aid and levy in January. And then that just allows us to be able to, our spending authorities are credit
Yeah.
limit. So, which, Iowa has this weird thing where we have spending authority in cash, and occasionally districts have cash on hand, but no spending authority to spend it. And
Mhm.
that's why they always, the first thing you learn as a superintendent is get as much spending authority as you can. So that may be a little bit longer answer than you wanted, but.
Well, and the other, I don't know, we really haven't focused any on the fund that this would allow it to come from as well.
Well, it would allow, the fund is the general fund, the special, I don't know, how would you say this, Kathy? Special ed is kind of like general fund, but it's general fund 1A or something. Somebody once said it's like general fund subset A, because it is part of general fund. It's a cost that comes out of general fund, but it's one of those few times that you can ask for authority. Like when I spend other general fund, I can't go ask authority for paper I buy or salaries I pay to any other employees.
Right.
So,
But this one you can.
but this one you can't.
This
So
is all property tax then.
Mhm.
Do we know what percentage of our students in the special education are from our district versus outside of district?
Hmm. No, that's a good question, though. If it helps for me to bring this back at another meeting, I can do that. I feel like we're gonna end up with a special meeting with our next agenda item when we talk about RFPs. So we could take these notes down, and we could certainly, I know it's been discussed in the past with the board. And I just want to make sure that we address, I think to John's point, we had a good person in the past, and when it wasn't, if this made into a director position, we lost him, and I think that potentially will happen here as well.
It's important for us, though, to, while I respect that, and now more than ever, we want to retain staff in our school district. We need to make responsible decisions, not based on staffing, but just the long-term structure that we want. I still see a lot of benefits to having the special administrator admin position. But we want to make that decision, not with the person attached to it.
I do know that IEP meetings can take time,
Yes,
and if you're able to relieve your principals of having to attend those meetings, and are able to do something else, it might then prevent us from having to hire an assistant or another administrator to help in those buildings while this is going on.
it's an opportunity cost.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's shuffling heads a little
Right.
bit, but
I'm gonna ask a question, and I don't want this to be construed as negative, but the question is when we have special education, we do a lot of special education in our school district. And we have a lot of other kids come in to utilize our services. And then we actually, then they reimburse us for 100% of our costs. Where do we benefit from being that special education hub? It probably gives us more expertise for our own students, I would think.
Yeah, hopefully one of the benefits is it allows you to fill up your classrooms a little bit more with students, so that you just have, we might be able to manage 4 students with the same number of adults. You can manage 6 students per, just say, so gives you a little bit of economy of scale. I mean, it's kind of like open enrollment, it increases your enrollment that way and your money coming in. Obviously, there's money going out to pay for services. I think those are probably, I would, if I had to guess how the district went down and started, when you have services to provide a child in the neighboring district doesn't have those services and they look, that's just kind of the philosophy that we've had here.
One thing I would think as well, it means that our resident special ed students don't have to get in a van and drive to somewhere else. We're not driving them to another community, other communities are driving their students to us.
Mhm. Are we ready to vote on this tonight, or do we need more time to digest and?
I would think I would like to table it and, I would like Tim for you to look at other districts our size and see how many of them have this director of education position as administrative position.
I'm not sure that, I think our situation is unique because we have Crossroads across the street. And I think that comparing ourselves to other districts would be not be comparing apples to apples, because we're in a unique situation where not only are we a special ed hub for our region, but we also have the center across the street that we are the fiscal agent of. And
Yeah, any
managing.
any comparison is gonna just have to understand that it's not gonna be a direct comparison. But
Unless we find the other.
yeah, find the other hubs and we find the other people that have I don't know if there's gonna be too many places that have I guess a contracted services like Crossroads in their town.
Maybe the measure of comparison would be to find other communities of similar size that have the only Walmart in 70 miles. That'd work.
I mean, Waverly has the lead center, but then they manage that. So that would be at least a comparison that would make a little bit more sense.
Mhm.
So, and there's a few of those, I mean, but then a lot of the districts like Waterloo would have a center that is kind of a hub, but again, we're not gonna compare ourselves to Waterloo. So, sure, I can try to get comparisons that. But it'll probably be comparisons with a caveat. That's what I would say.
Mhm. Well, we need a motion from somebody to do something. So who wants to jump in?
When you say that we're gonna have another meeting, that's within it's probably 2 weeks away or something like that.
Well, I was gonna ask us to look at our calendars and see, I'd be interested in setting up times for the final architect firms that we could meet with and, if it has to be in March, it'll be when the board can do it, but if the board could do it in a couple of weeks, and we can narrow it down to 3 tonight, I would recommend we do it sooner than later. Just among other things, the process of interviewing architects is going to be, roughly three firms. That's going to be 3 hours.
Mhm.
So, about a 45-minute presentation and then a 15-minute opportunity for board to ask questions. So, we could leave that on a board meeting. We could leave that on, I guess, March 13th in next month. That's going to be then a 4 or 5 hour meeting. It doesn't have to be, but it would be at least a 3 hour meeting. It'd be like a 3 hour and
I think that's better off as a special meeting.
Mhm.
because Ron and I kind of talked through that and it made sense to have it be a special meeting and then we could just focus that night.
Mhm.
Well, if we aren't gonna ask for additional information before we make a decision, I don't think it makes sense to table it. We have some defined things that we wanna know. One, I would have guessed about our whether we're heavy on administrators, and I know we can still look at this as an individual situation that's different, but it's a big deal to add it for the long term.
It is.
Long-term administrative position.
I think that also this, yes, this adds an administrator, but it also adds capacity to our existing administrators, which I think is valuable as well.
And I think we have to recognize as well that it's not as if we are adding the expense of an entire administrative position. From what that's
Should be adding the difference.
would be adding about $20,000 because we're taking somebody we already have and paying them as an administrator rather than a certified teacher. So it's not like we're adding $100,000 or even $40,000.
Mhm.
Given those arguments, I'm gonna make a motion. To approve the full-time special education director position as stated in the packet here.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, moving onward. We received five,
Actually, it's six,
6.
and there's a. Hopefully the little spreadsheet got uploaded.
Yes.
So there's a spreadsheet. I would say. Everybody had a positive recommendation that I was able to get from. A non, not, well, I didn't take it off of their brochure. I got it from a superintendent that I knew, either phone call or email. And so I think all of these firms would be, good. They all have done schoolwork. I think the ones that stuck out to me that I would be interested in the board reviewing would be Emergent. They currently do a lot of our work, or have done a lot of our work in the past. Envision, if you had a chance to see their kind of stuff, one of the things they highlighted was really touted walking through the bond process and how they work with districts to make sure the bonds are successful. Then when I looked at the third one, again, all the other ones I did like, but I think the SVPA was a firm that I also liked, but.
Could you say those three again?
Sure, Emergent.
1, 2,
SVPA.
and 5.
Yeah, here, I think there's, you know what it's called? Is it called, oh, here, if you did this.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. So,
Emergent, SVPA, and
yeah, and Emergent, Envision, so 1, 2, and 5 are the ones that stuck out to me. 1, 2, I guess stuck out. 5, again, I all of these, try to put the comments, Ethos does have some comments I got from Mount Vernon, and they liked, so number 6, which may not be there. Greg in Mount Vernon said, they're great with everything. His comment was they, kept on time and on budget.
those are
So,
big things.
yeah, that's nice to hear. SVPA, Rich Powers from Bondurant Farrar talked about how they've done a couple projects and they've used them in conjunction with a construction manager, which we're not deciding tonight, but Brian and I have looked into that. Their thoughts on construction manager that, and again, not to throw something extra in there that we don't need to decide tonight, but the idea of a construction manager is they work with your architect and you just say, this is our budget, and you don't plan for anything that you can't afford. So it's like real-time costs, is that?
I'd say, yeah, there's a couple different ways, there's two different.
Yeah, there's-
Managers, but that's a good description of it.
And so the thought about a construction manager, you don't have to get into a project and say, we can borrow 25 million, but the way the structure is now, and because costs have risen and whatnot, it's 28 million, so what are we gonna cut out? I know that happens to schools, so, but shouldn't have said all that, because that's about a construction manager, we're just talking about architects tonight. But I don't know if people had other thoughts, again, I don't know if any of them would be bad, just, I felt good about the responses I got, and like I said, I always like to check with other people that I know, and people said really nice things about them. So,
I'll be 100% honest with you. I just received it this morning. I wasn't able to really dive into it and look at it to see what caught my eye. So I really can't, I can't give much input.
Well, this is, again, something we're narrowing, the goal is to narrow the pool, not to make a final decision, so certainly we would have time to go back and do a little more digging before we would have a future
yeah,
special meeting to.
these would be the three folks or three firms. But I guess you could bring out all six if you wanted to do that. I just, time wise and the ability to safer. That's why I would recommend we not do more than three.
Did you other board members get an opportunity to take a look at these?
You sent some things out Saturday, I think.
Yeah.
Saturday.
And I started looking, and it was like, got into the first one, oh, this looks really good, and the second one, well, this looks really good.
Yeah.
Got into the third, well, this looks really good.
Yeah.
And then he kept sending more
Yeah.
out, and it's like, it's all, this is not my area of expertise at all. And you have some experience with it, so. If you could pick through a few things here and there that might differentiate down to three, no, I'm totally on board with that.
John, did anything stand out to you?
They all stand out to me as being good.
Yeah.
The ones that you mentioned are high in my list, but I also have been seen the work done in Osage and Clear Lake by Altura, and that was very impressive stuff.
Mhm.
They do a nice job.
Agreed.
Well, maybe we do need to interview all six.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. It's time, but it's
And
it's hard based on what I've seen here for me to just whittle it down. I mean, you can do it. And ultimately we will, but based on their qualifications, I don't think any of them are disqualified.
What are we gonna get from that interviewing them, and we don't know until we do it, of course, that we don't have from this information to narrow it down? Is that what we find out?
The level of comfort that you have in talking to people,
Yeah,
how well they can communicate their ideas, whether or not it's their idea that they're gonna be telling you, this is what we're gonna do, and this is, and you know, we've been through it quite a lot, for quite a number of years. They may say something about their fees that catches your attention as far as, okay, we charge a certain percentage, we have a flat fee, we have different things of that nature.
You notice much different than the fee structure?
Nothing stuck out, no. And I just was kind of looking at the firms. I didn't spend a lot of time on the fee because I wanted I wanted somebody who's gonna be successful with a bond, and then somebody that, would add, is it gonna just do I know a lot of architects want to add their own flair to it, but I'd like a building that our students want to go in, and that it's appealing.
it fits our community.
Yeah, fits our community, absolutely. I mean, I will gladly see if all 6 of them want to come, and if the board is up for that, we can do it.
Do they have to come or can you do it via the owl and a Zoom?
Well, you could do it that way. You could. I mean, if you made everybody do it that way, you could. I just know that there's some firms that kind of would want to get in front of you face to face because
Because they're good at that.
because they're good at that, yeah. So, but it's your process. I mean, like if you want, I mean, and I say an hour, because I kind of asked around, I said, how long would it take? And, but if we were worried about wanting to do them all in one night and say, gosh, 6 hours is 6 hours just to listen, and then we have to talk about and decide, that could be 7 hours. We could try to truncate the process down
I think a
to,
half an hour would be plenty. You know, that's if you can't convey your message in a half an hour. You should be able to.
You know, like 20 minutes for a presentation, 10 minutes for questions.
Yeah.
I mean, right now we've spent 10 minutes just on this, our little go around here, you know.
One thing that might be beneficial as well is to take a little road trip and visit some of the facilities that people are holding out as examples. I mean, we've got Riceville, Howard, Winnebago, Oline, Western Dubuque, and Osage. None of those are that far away. We could go see the work.
Or we could take a look at the pictures that they. And save a lot of windshield.
Are there any that, based on where they're based out of, doesn't make sense?
I think it all comes back, it's a question of fees. If they're billing us for travel time, then that's a big deal. If that's just built in. I don't know if that's-
and so I can just tell you, like, so Ethos, which is here in town, got bought out recently by ISG, and so they're one of the recommendations, one of the things that made them, you know. So I'm talking to Greg at Mount Vernon, and he says, well, the guy lives in Rochester, but he was in our district. He never missed a meeting. He was in their district all the time. Now, I did say that there was an additional fee for that, but that could certainly be, I don't know if you're looking to eliminate some people prior to the meeting, or if that's.
I'm not sure it's valuable for us to interview 6 architect firms. I know this is an important decision. I think that we could interview 3 or maybe even 4. And if we're not impressed or don't see what we want, we can always go back to more. But I don't want us to be drowning in information to slow us down in making a decision.
And I'd like to know, and we don't, because every project is different. What are we looking for? I mean, what? No, we're in different parts. I know. We're all in different parts of the community and different places in our life, and I felt overwhelmed this week. I'm trying to dig through all the information. It's just that they all look good.
Yeah.
And
there's, you know, I can tell you, I just went through this not too long ago on the airport commission, and we had our architect that we've used for many, many years, and we thought that they were serving us very well. But we wanted to do a project up at the airport, and we interviewed, I think it was 3 or at least 3, I think it was 4 different architects. And once we listened to them and we asked probably some good questions, we could ask some better questions possibly, but after we listened to them, and we did have a conversation after we listened to them, we all kind of brought some different things to the table about what we took away from those architects. And we had a pretty good consensus at the end after listening to their presentation. And we switched architects. We didn't think we were going to before. We thought we were kind of going through it as a process and not really with a different ending. But we did have a different ending. We picked a new architect, and they gave us valuable information. We're moving forward with the project, and we're tickled pink with them. So I think by interviewing, I think we are going to hopefully have some pretty good questions. And none of us were professionals in the business, but we kind of got it, and we came to a good conclusion. And I would hope we could do the same thing here. Now, like I said, I haven't looked at them, and not if I look at them, would I come down to the same 3 that you did? Possibly. So by alienating 3 of them just because we don't want the process to be quicker. That might be good. And I think 3 would be better than if we interview three versus 4 or 5. If we really don't know how good they are because we haven't had a presentation. I guess one way to narrow it down would be, Tim, maybe do a little more research on, see if the 3 that you picked or talk to some of the school districts that actually did the work and get some more information that might be valuable. 6 is gonna be a lot, and I'd rather have 4 really good interviews than 6 quick interviews that we didn't give enough opportunity to speak, give us the idea of what they really do.
Let me throw out an idea, thinking back to hiring a superintendent.
Mhm.
How about we do 15-minute screening interviews with all 6 via Zoom? And then after that, pick 3 to actually bring on site.
Or how many we want.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
you have to set a number,
That number wasn't even.
right, some smaller number based
Right.
upon those screening interviews.
And the local one, which we didn't have anything on this weekend, right?
No,
Just the fact that they're in Decorah has,
well,
they were in Decorah.
Yeah, that's a detailed story. They've been bought out, but the owner,
Are they gonna keep the storefront here?
I don't know about that. That owner was a Luther grad and actually passed away, so it was kind of a tough deal,
Okay.
but
So on the surface, that has some appeal to have someone locally at least.
yeah.
Kind of local.
Yeah, kind of, it's, so. Well,
I do think, if they give us a good presentation, whether we start with 3 or 6 or whatever, Ron, I'm not against what your proposal is whatsoever. But I do think, once we list these presentations, I think we're gonna come away with a good feeling of which one's gonna do a better job for us, which one have a feel for a community, maybe some vision.
Is it fair to bring 6 in? I mean, I would.
I think making the travel,
Okay.
6 travel.
So 6 zooming.
Ron's idea is
Yeah.
Zoom to have initial presentation, talk a little bit about what the projects they've done. It seems like a productive use of time in my eyes.
And we'd make it clear that there are 6.
Yeah,
yeah, I can just say, hey, the board wants to add
15 minutes. Yeah.
15 minutes and kind of, I think Ron said it earlier, like if you can't convey your message in 15 minutes, then that tells us something too. There's nothing wrong with that. And from there, we say we're gonna bring this is, the semifinal round, we're gonna bring a certain number back, but we might watch it and say we only want to bring 2 back, or we might really like 4, or.
yeah, I would think that after the, 15-minute Zoom round, we're probably gonna have a pretty good sense. And we're probably gonna say, oh, there's these 2 that we just can't decide between, so let's bring them in.
And it will give us more time to digest and read through
Yeah.
these proposals, and I just want a spreadsheet
Mhm.
with more information or
We
Just to make it
pretty good idea of fees, because, 5% versus 1% fee on a $10 million project is a lot of money. I think it's probably a pretty good idea, but all I would say is I would think, but I would probably rather see 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes, once you get introductions, and 15 minutes might be a little short, but be 6, 7, or 20 minutes a piece.
But all of them via Zoom or?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so they can't be in person because some are gonna.
Yeah, I think you'd wanna make it, either they can all come if they want, or nobody can come.
No, it's make them do the Zoom. To start it off, that way we're not wasting their time to drive all the way up here. They may think they have a foot in the door, but it's from the standpoint of their time, let's start off this way. And Brian's idea of 20 minutes is probably a better way to go than the 15.
And then 10 for us to decompress and start the next one. etc. Is that a public meeting? Or is that closed?
That would be a public meeting. I don't know. I can't think of any reason. it would be
I'm not
closed.
sure who would really want to attend, but
Yeah.
Well, that superintendents, there, you're evaluating someone of their competence.
But when what did we do, 6 Zoom interviews for you? Were you one of 6? Then we narrowed it down.
Those 5.
Was it 5? Okay. But was that a public meeting on Zoom?
No, but that,
No,
that's,
no.
that's
Okay.
different.
but it's different because each of those people that apply for that job, they're a person.
They had
and they-
requested confidentiality in the
So you're
application.
evaluating the competency of.
So this doesn't have to
It's
be
a certain code,
No.
we're just, and. Yeah. The discussion. Then is
So,
probably the part that
yeah,
needs to be
the
sensitive.
one thing I would say, if you're doing it that way, I would not make the decision that night. Simply because it, well, you could maybe make the decision that night, but you might have to express some feelings that would be broadcast
Mhm.
about what you're, and I would not want to have the firms feel as if they're being picked apart. It might be one of those things where you have an opportunity amongst your fellow board members to individually say speak your mind, without having it broadcast in a public way where you're evaluating a particular individual architect or architectural firm, which you can't control what's then on the video, and somebody might
And
make a
it's
meme out of it
forever
or
on,
something like
well, it's just posted on the YouTube channel. I wonder if there's consideration that we want to take for, I mean, these monthly meetings, I'm really excited that they're accessible to people from home. I'm wondering, like, with this type of meeting like John is describing, is that the same?
I think you have to have the public meeting when you come together and coalesce, but there might be something that an individual board member picks up on
Right.
this and says, gosh, that was a huge red flag
Right.
for me. And I really, would like to, mention that without having it airing a dirty laundry thing.
Yeah.
Where it would impact a person's business.
Yeah, right.
Well, no one's gonna think we're so influential that they'll disregard somebody because of our
Yeah,
opinion.
well, I'm following where you're coming from, and not only just because of board members, but for these folks, if we have 6 interviews, for instance, and then they're all in open, which it would be, and that's fine. But you're also having the other people looking at the other people who just interviewed, knowing that what's my competition gonna be when I come back? And this doesn't seem,
It
it
affects
doesn't
the
seem really
process.
fair
Right.
as we speak through it, go through it.
Mhm.
And it's good to go through things.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there a different? Would you want to assign it to a subcommittee to take from 6 down to 3?
We've never really been big into subcommittees, and I don't really want to start.
And if we do, it can only be 2.
Yeah, we do with negotiations.
Yeah, but those, it's not as if we're holding big meetings. I don't know.
Well, the subcommittee could be private then.
Yes. That's, if I was feeding off of John's suggestion that there might be some.
Would it be
Stuff.
possible to have the interviews or is it possible to have closed session after for board discussion?
I don't think there's any exceptions within the open meetings law that would allow you to have a closed meeting to discuss an architect. It's not an employee, it's not a student.
It's not real estate.
It's not real
Well,
estate.
it's sort of this real estate.
Well, but no, the real estate exception is because it might affect the price you're paying.
Yeah.
There's,
So what you could do is you could vet all 6 and have the interviews, and that could be on a Monday, and then you could process, and we could have a meeting on a Wednesday and finalize. But to your point, I don't, unless I'm missing something, I don't know if there's a closed session or exempt session that would qualify for this, and
Imagine this is- I don't think there is.
not that there's press here or anything to follow us or anything, but,
Well, there's no exception.
yeah.
Having the open discussion is fine. It's just that I don't want to,
Say something that you're
say
like,
something
oh,
that would
gosh,
impact somebody's business.
Brian's
Right.
firm, I couldn't believe he said this, and so then maybe it's a little bit of how we have the discussion, and perhaps there's a board member gets a veto that they don't have to describe.
Yeah, honestly, my impression of this is that the process is gonna be difficult to eliminate people. It's gonna be more about who stood out the most, not who isn't making the cut, you know?
Is it possible to have a public meeting without it live streamed?
Oh, we did it for years.
Okay, so I guess I would suggest that just not be live streamed.
I don't think we want to pick and choose what we live stream and we don't, just because we want the public to see something. I don't think that,
I agree.
and it's not that we don't want them to see it, it's that we're protecting the people that we're interviewing. But I think if we're gonna live stream meetings, we really need to live stream all of them.
Yeah.
So my thought is that we do this. All around suggestion is that we, and with Brian's time frame, is 20 minutes per firm.
Hey, Brian, John, not to interrupt, but Adam. But I wanted to get your input, if we're gonna pick a day here, what do we need to avoid in the next?
Yeah, I have
2
some
weeks.
of these. We don't want to do anything next Monday. We don't want to do anything next, Friday. And then,
Friday in 4 days. Or Friday a week from Friday.
well, I don't think
Friday
Friday,
in 4 days, no.
For next week would go Monday for the boys, they when they play Thursday. And then our girls regional final would be on Tuesday, so.
yeah,
The games, they would go out next Friday, there'd be a band concert. That's scheduled, and how that impacts people.
Are there any possible playoff dates on a Wednesday?
No.
So Wednesdays are safe.
First 2 rounds, the girls play, we would be fortunate enough to play in the morning, yeah, Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah,
So, a week from this Wednesday would be available, would a week, the day following that, Thursday after?
that and boys varsity.
Boys varsity, the boys would win the first round game, that would be their second round game. So,
So we're looking at Wednesdays
Yeah,
or the weekend.
I was thinking Wednesdays or Sundays, but I didn't want to say it out loud.
People don't realize that it is the most packed consistently for nights for the next several weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
Start winning the postseason, the number of copies that we try to have before.
yeah.
So
Good question.
You looked through some of these, or all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've looked through 4 of them that were sent out this weekend. And then there was 2 that were added and I had not looked through those.
So you don't think if we all looked at, I've not looked at it, if we would have had these 5 days ago, I would look at it.
Yeah.
Some of us we may have been able to whittle it down to 3, I think, or not.
Boy,
Is that right?
4 looked great.
yeah,
They're good.
I tried to, that was the whole point of the spreadsheet, and I just shared my Google Doc with you. I tried to make sure I had, again, a comment or recommendation and things like, outstanding, they were on time. And I'm not asking questions, I'm just saying, hey, what do you think of this firm? So this wasn't a leading question. I think they're all really good. The idea of doing all 6, if you guys are game for that, I think that's great. I just, finding a night we can do it is just gonna be the tough part. I thought Ron was gonna suggest a road trip where you just drive around and look at each one of them. I don't know if I wanna be in that car or not, but there's whatever this board wants to come up with their process, we'll work with. If you have more time if you say, oh gosh, let's have a 5-minute meeting on Wednesday because I'm ready to vote. I don't know if just looking at is gonna really narrow it down. without, having saying, oh, we have a familiarity with Nick with emergent, let's make sure we include him. But yeah, there was nobody that was like, oh, but
And
Yeah.
I think, we asked about fees and I think fees are, and I don't, if they're all really basically the same. We could, if we had two or three of them, that we said that these guys, all three could really, they could do a good job, and one guy's fee was 20% less than the other one. It'd be something to consider.
20% less, you betcha.
Right?
If you wanted to narrow it down to 4, I would give you my 4 right now.
okay,
That would be emergent, envision, Atura, and SVPA, 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Is there anything wrong with us taking a little time, looking at them together and give Tim our top 3? Or top 4?
Tonight, right now.
No, right. I haven't looked at it.
you're talking about like a 5-10 minute meeting on Friday.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with us looking at them and giving and talking, you can say, Tim, here's what I think, and then you can make a determination based on.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Sure.
Do you want to have a 5-minute meeting to vote on
Nope.
the ones you're bringing in?
Yeah, I have meetings every night this week.
I'm just thinking of like a phone call.
Phone call, well, get in the car, yeah.
So
7 in the
that's
morning.
what I'm saying, and
That's
and
fine.
believe me, I don't want to do anything that's not right,
Mhm.
but not even discussing it as a board, but giving you our thoughts. And see if you can come up with 3 based on that information. Is that something that can or can't make sense?
I think it
It seems a little odd.
Yeah,
it would have to be done in a manner where none of us are speaking to one another.
That's exactly what it is.
And
We're not.
And we're willing to have that information go public when the time comes.
Is that a bad situation, Tim?
yeah, that's why you guys could have some time to look at it. We could say, let's have a phone-in meeting on Friday
I'm okay with that.
at 8 AM, noon, 4 PM, when Ben's in the shower, whatever. Where we could just say, I could just say, here are my recommendations. But then you guys have approved them. I feel better about that.
Yeah, and you put some, you already put some stuff together, but
Mhm.
I think, I guess what I'm really saying is I don't think it's fair to go from 6 down to 3 when we don't really have a whole lot of information where we could we could be cutting out 3 people that didn't really get a fair shake and all the work that they put into putting the polls together.
And I think I would still prefer to do, as I suggested before, we could, phone in to Tim, but I think to really get more information, I think the 15, 20-minute interviews would be far more valuable than anything else we could do.
I understand, but I think that is asking for too much. We've already put out our request for proposal. They have done what we asked them to do. I think if we're going, I would be more interested in having the 5-minute, having a few more days to digest this and think about it. Have a 5-minute meeting to pick our top 3 to 4 and then invite them for a full interview, for a full thing. I don't think that,
You say too much for the architecture.
I think it's too much to ask them. We have the request for proposal, then asking them for the 15 to 20-minute dog and pony show, and then potentially be invited back for a full interview.
Only I'm sure those that would wind up not being selected would much rather have had the opportunity to talk more than not, but they don't know how they're gonna be.
I don't think that we need the 5-minute meeting if we're gonna do the 15-minute.
And that's, yeah, and I guess I'm advocating for the 15 or 20-minute thing, just like, okay, see if you can contact them and see if they would all be willing to take 15 or 20 minutes, whatever we decide, like next Wednesday. And after that, then we will have, then we've got a full load of information and impressions, and
Then we can narrow it down to, ultimately 1, but definitely 2 would probably be the lowest. Potentially
yeah.
from that, but if we decide 3 or 4. We don't want 4. Decide 3.
Let's see, we have a question from the media.
Yes, will you be taking a vote? Because it's been all over.
Oh, there have to be a vote. Whenever, in public, whenever.
You mean
tonight?
No, I mean, as to your procedure, because you suggested 3 or 4 different ways. of
Yeah.
doing this.
Yes,
Okay.
We'll come to consensus. I don't know, so take a vote again. But,
Right.
Yeah, we won't be here all night long.
It's,
Seems like
it's not an action item on the agenda, so. I don't know. It is not an action item? No, it's just a review.
Review.
Oh, okay.
but we're not selecting anybody. We're just determining the next process, the next step in the process.
Right.
So,
That was my question. So your
Yeah.
answer is you don't have to take a vote.
Yeah, we won't. You can't.
You can't. Okay, good. I've got a second meeting, so I understand. Take off.
So
We could offer a 20-minute Zoom meeting. A week from Wednesday is a good day for me. And if the 6 want to come back,
We could. After digesting it a little bit, Cindy was saying, their time, they sent in what we asked. And, I know that I can, based on, going through them just quickly here, I can, a couple rise to the top. And I'm willing to listen to what other people have to say, but I think that we, as a board, ought to review these and come to a little bit of a consensus, rather than dragging out the process with another meeting. I've kind of changed my direction here after what Cindy had to say. I think that the paper information, some of the recommendations, I think that we're going to be working with a professional firm and, they're going to provide us good direction. And ultimately some of the final interview process will separate the top one. I'm pretty confident of that. I don't know which one that's going to be at this point, but of the 6, I think there's a little bit of separation just in the paper materials that they've already provided.
okay, but I think we've discussed long enough.
One thing this board likes to do is this board likes to get information so that they can digest it and think about it and not have to make a vote. That we're making a vote even, but not make a decision without having some time to think about things.
Yeah.
And I think we've been through that a lot, and we always come to consensus that, if you're gonna do something, we're gonna do something major, let's get some information to us, let us think about it a little bit. Maybe not even make a decision that night, but here. So I think we got this information. I kind of late for the meeting, at least for me. I was gone all weekend. I just got to look at it. It showed up this morning. I didn't get a chance to look at it, so I don't have enough information to make a decision. And I'd be very, very happy to take a good look at this information over the next day or two. We have a meeting later in the week. I can be here, if some people want to be here, 3 people can get here for an hour and 2 other people want to call in, so be it. But I think it's worth taking that time. And then hopefully we can digest it ourselves. We have some questions. We maybe even ask Tim to make a call to somebody and he can do that. And we all come back and have a quick conversation. So this is what I think. And I bet we can get down to 3. Or some a number that we feel comfortable with.
Yeah. Do you want to try to get together Wednesday night, just 2 nights from now? Is that too quick?
I have a 5 o'clock meeting that night at the township.
Yeah.
So I can't even call that one.
And you can't do one during the day. Like a noonish. you do.
Friday nights, unless we go to the weekend or Monday again.
Would there be a?
Friday night would be a
Monday
call.
is gonna be a basketball.
Yeah,
When did we tell these people, Tim, that we were going to have a decision?
well, I think we said we were gonna call people back by a certain date, but, this would say, hey, the board needs some time to process, and it was an aggressive timeline to get them on Friday and try to turn around, so.
Where I am right now, the four that I've looked at, they're all good. And I trust the judgment of the four of you. If the four of you can get together and I can't be there, I'm totally at peace with that.
Okay, well, Brian, you want to, I'm not clear exactly what you're advocating as of right now. I mean, tell me.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I haven't had a chance to take a look at it. And I don't know if anybody else, if they have more time to look at it. That I think if now we have the information, look at it, digest it. Maybe ask some questions that might make a different determination in your decision. Maybe give them to Tim, and Tim maybe make a phone call if he has to, like, hey, the school that you guys did, you really happy with this, and tell me what you did. Maybe some might have the conversation, maybe not, but I'm hoping, and by digesting it, we can all get some thoughts, have a meeting, try to narrow down to 2 or 3 or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I guess we can share our thoughts with Tim, and then he gathers that information and makes his recommendation back to us.
That's kind of what I thought earlier, but I didn't know if that was legal. As long as we just talk to you and say, Tim,
You
here's
can
my
talk to
three.
me, we all have to be careful that we're not having a rolling meeting and I'm going back and saying Brian said this or anything like that.
Right.
So I could take your input.
Then you can make a
and I can
public
make-
recommendation
I can make
in
a
a public
recommendation.
meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it would probably be the one thing that we all understand, that we're gonna give our input to Tim, and he's gonna make a recommendation that will become the list of finalists. A list back to us that we go and rehash again. But that these are the people who are gonna be coming or on Zoom or whatever we wind up. You okay with that?
So where does that leave us?
So can I make my recommendations by Thursday morning at a meeting that we could call, or Thursday noon?
I don't think it'd even be necessarily a meeting for that. I think it would be, Tim gets everyone's feedback and makes a list of the,
I think that's putting him in an uncomfortable
I think the
situation. He said,
policy that the board hires the architect.
yeah. I
right,
think
but
we
I
should-
mean, it's narrowing it down, and then we're making the final decision amongst those 3 or 4.
Which we have to.
They're
do.
not hiring the architect, we're narrowing our focus on.
Yeah.
So we're not in favor of a quick a quick phone meeting later this week.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
The safest way to do it.
that's what I'm saying. If we just put like Thursday morning at 7:30, and if you can come here, you come here, otherwise we'll get 3 cell phones huddled around and we'll have a meeting. Or we could do it at lunchtime.
I can phone in at 7:30.
Yeah, or we could do it at lunchtime too. I'm supposed to be doing a Shark Tank that day, but I can walk back over for a meeting.
Lunchtime I can't do.
Yeah,
So what would that meeting entail? I mean, are you communicating out to us, or are we
I'm
communicating?
making my recommendation saying, hey, these are the 3 to 4 firms that I think we should schedule for Wednesday meeting.
In that meeting, we could voice our opinion about what they would be, and we could see if we can come up with consensus.
Yeah,
7:30 Thursday would work.
does that work for everybody else?
Wednesday and Friday do not.
7:30 in the morning,
Mhm.
that should work.
Works for me.
But I'll be joining you by phone.
Yeah.
Or Zoom or whatever you want.
Probably Zoom. Hey, Sean. Okay.
Perfect.
What's easiest?
Probably Zoom, because then we can give you the number and you can.
Oh, so 1:30, okay.
Okay,
Can you schedule that so that then you can start the Zoom and?
Oh, that's a public meeting, so it has to be posted.
Mhm. We have to get it posted tomorrow.
Mhm.
By Wednesday.
Is it 24 hours?
Yes, 24 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not gonna take long to create that agenda.
No, there will be an actionable item.
Yeah,
All right, somebody please make that a motion.
There's no, it was just a discussion. It was review.
Okay,
We put the agenda together. Review, we're on, so we reviewed it.
I'll give you some thoughts.
Sounds good. You better get to
Yeah,
orchestra.
enjoy some music.
okay,
I think we're almost done.
Yeah.
superintendent's report.
I don't know what to highlight in there besides, I'm trying to think what got in there. There was a couple attachments that I threw on just because I thought they were interesting stuff.
Last one was illegal, I think, wasn't it? With a softball coach,
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
personnel matter.
Yeah. So I just in collecting, we're gonna have to do some upgrades, some just maintenance to John Klein. That's been overdue. But when I put together stuff about, hey, the roof estimates are 200,000. I'm not saying we would do 200,000. I'm just kind of letting you guys have that information as kind of a talking point of like, you know, if we don't pass a bond, that could potentially be a cost that we have. And we really have put some things, kick some cans down the road. So the sooner that we start working on a new school referendum, the better. But I know Rick and Greg and I are gonna have to get together and come up with the things that we just have to, like loose tiles and stuff, we just have to stay on top of. The parking lot lease with the bank is up this August. So we'll explore that, getting that. I think they have a right of refusal to add 10 more years to that. So and I think the bank's been really good to us and we wouldn't have any part of that we don't want to participate in.
I looked at that, just a thought, they paid for it, and then that was their lease payment for the first 15 years, the fact that they put it in. I would say this may be an option if they're willing to maintain it for the next 10 years, if there's need some work done, that might be their.
You think like surfacing and painting and stuff,
Yeah, if there's,
whatever it
cracks,
needs, yeah, filling the cracks.
Versus, or come up with a lease payment, either one, whichever would be fairest to them, because they've been a great partner. But I think it says if you go to, come up with an equally determined rent. But if say, hey, you guys want to just maintain it, if something comes up and needs to be done on it, you can still push snow and all that type of stuff, but
We clear it, right?
I believe so.
actually,
Okay.
Yeah. Were you involved in the first lease?
Yeah.
Okay.
we laid it all out.
So if I have a meeting with the bank, can I invite you to come?
Yeah, I mean, they'll do whatever, but yeah, happy to.
Okay.
Actually, we were up there, sitting up there, Ben Grimstead and Mike West and I, and as we were sitting up there looking at it, some kid was doing donuts in the parking lot.
Sweet.
From the snow,
Sweet.
honest to God.
Awesome.
It's good fun.
That's great.
Hmm.
So other than that, I just threw some legislative notes and tried to highlight just stuff that I thought was interesting. There wasn't, there's a lot of different bills that are being proposed. Thought it was interesting on the transportation, where you could go pick up the open enrollment students, because that would be new. That wouldn't, to my understanding, cover Minnesota coming down and picking up students, but would across the state line. So
They're doing anything they can to encourage people to leave whatever school they're in.
yeah. So I think those were kind of the big highlights. I had some other notes, the new money. I put that in my weekly notes to the board. The new money looked better than.
I'm giving you two things.
That-
mixed up. Your
yeah.
weekly report for your
Yeah,
superintendent's report.
Yeah. I sometimes am too. That's why I know I looked at some of those administrative figures. I can't remember where I put those, but I'll dig those back up and look at those. So this wasn't a super long report just because it's got a lot of stuff about legislative bills and stuff, but if there's any questions.
No, if no questions, Kathy, what about our finances?
All of our funds are up or equal to a year ago, except for the general fund, and that's only down about 150,000. So everything seems to be just going on fine.
Have are like Pebble and Safe collections been a pace of last year or better?
Yes, we haven't been spending the money though, so we've been kind of Hoarding it, if you want to call it
I mean, we were
that.
worried during the
Save.
pandemic, of the things,
Right,
just tanking.
And those could be used for the bus barn purchase.
yes. We do have two bond payments coming up. I have one to say,
Do we have the money from Northwind?
yes, we do,
Okay, that's Pebble.
yes.
So that fund's
Mhm,
pretty big.
mhm.
I didn't look at the details. It doesn't matter. I can look.
Okay,
But it's ahead of last year
yes.
by a lot.
Yeah.
But it's gonna go down.
Mhm.
Okay. And I would think that our winter weather has been not as bad as we could have had, so hopefully we're spending a little bit less on the.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Somebody else did something today and I just looked at him like, why did you say that out loud? And it was like weather.
Well, you can't take back December and January, at least they were what they were.
I just, probably the one report on Kathy that she makes is that 4 and 5, where she just does the comparisons over time, and I think that's what she was, highlighting on. You can kind of look where we're at general fund in January of 22 compared to general fund of 23. I always like to look 1 year, compare months to months, because,
Mhm.
and it's always good to have a couple months to compare, so. It's kind of it helps you with your trend.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, unless there are additional questions for Kathy, we are